wanted to relay one of the problems if you don't know the language of the country that you move to, and for me that's France. I had a bit of a challenge, and I don't mind challenges, but sometimes the old way that we are accustomed to in the US I can kind of like spin out, because I feel like I'm going to be experiencing the same sorts of anxieties I do have in the US, because the difference here is there's a social safety net. But I'm still, and physically, my body's not accustomed to thinking, even my brain and my body is not accustomed to that. So in the US, it's not a safety net. They're always looking for an opportunity, like whether it's healthcare or something, to bounce you. Like if you make a mistake, an honest mistake, you can find yourself like, oops, you're bounced out. Now you don't have coverage, and guess what? This bill that you thought you were covered for, hey, you owe $10,000. Like it's like the lottery in reverse, the lottery of bad news in the US. I don't even know why I'm laughing, because it's not funny. But here, it's actually the opposite. So I'm not speaking the language. I do have this topping off insurance, which in addition to the regular French healthcare, you get what's called a topping off or a mutuelle, which pays for anything above and beyond, because it's not full coverage by the French system. And somebody like me who's older, who's got conditions, pre-existing conditions, I need to have that kind of insurance. If you're young, it's really not advisable not to have it. But I guess if you're young, you can maybe get away with it. Just like in the US, like people in their 20s run around and don't have any insurance at all. That doesn't happen here. You'd be covered with the basic Social Security system just by being a citizen. So in any case, not speaking the language, and I picked one that I really like, but they're not like very American or very English friendly. So they've been calling me, and I'm like, je ne parle pas français, do you speak English? And no, and just this, and then hanging up. And I didn't realize, but my premiums weren't getting paid. I knew that they weren't, but I even at one point just said on the phone, do I owe you money? And they're like, no. So I thought, okay, I must be on some other kind of payment. I just wasn't focusing on it. So, and I wasn't getting any emails or text messages, and I thought I had everything all lined up that, I figured actually, erroneously, that it would be like an American system, that if you get, if you're not paying something, bam, you're getting an email or a text, or, well, in this case, they're calling, but they were so nonchalant, and then they didn't even bother to find an English-speaking person to call me, or instead send me an email. Like, again, you can't assume the American way is going to be the same way in another country. So your assumptions, you never know, right, when you're making assumptions. So finally, I was fishing around on their website, which I have my own personal space, as it's called, and all of a sudden I see a bunch of archived documents asking me for payment, and then finally something telling me in the end, this is terminated, you owe all this money, blah, blah, blah. And this was on a Sunday, yesterday, then I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my God, an official stamp and all this kind of stuff. So me thinking like in the US, that's like a typical gotcha moment of, this is terminal. Like I can't rectify this. I'm going to have to pay all this money as a penalty, and I'm going to be bounced out anyway. And because it was a very official looking document, and their documents here tend to look very official, like state-run documents. So you're kind of like, oh wow, they filed that with the state somewhere. So today I called up. I made numerous attempts. I finally just Googled their name, came up with a more like a page that said, internet, or if you're abroad, use this number. Like there were different numbers, and sure enough, the one I called, it was a guy that spoke English as well. And I was like, oh my God, help. And I was like so concerned about the fact that I hadn't paid and that I was not going to be able to keep my insurance and blah, blah, blah. And he's just, well, give me your name. So I did. And I started to tell him, he's like, no, hold on. I need to call a person. He's doesn't know perfect English. So he's like using very easy, elementary kind of words. But he said, just hold on, I will be back. And it took him a while. And he said, it's okay. We're going to send you a link and just pay till you're current, in so many words. And it took him a long while, but every time I speak to like a business that I'm dealing with that has to do, it's mostly in my my issues now are with insurance and the government system and stuff. But every time I speak to people in this line of work, it's never about me sitting there on the other end of the line going, oh no, is this going to work out? Like in the US where you're like on tenterhooks going, like, what fucked up thing am I going to have to face now? Instead, they come back like there were no penalty fees. That was another thing I was wondering. I thought for sure they're going to charge interest. Like, no, it was a straight, here's the link. Send these months that are now past due. And it was like 4 months or 3.5 months. Just pay. It's fine. And I'm like, you're my hero. He was cracking up. He was obviously, I was so glad that it was resolved so without drama, basically. And he was probably quite surprised by my reaction of being so relieved. And that was that. And the email came with the link. I paid it. I'm back in good stead with it. All of that paperwork that looked so scary was, I think the way the French system is that they are so democratic socialist that they want emphasis on the socialist, that they are telling you everything you need to know because you are the individual has a safety net. So you have to, so they are doing everything in their power to be very official about everything they do. Like they can't be offhanded about it because they are the ones that will get screwed. So that's why it can come across looking so, official and dangerous and, like you're screwed now, when in actuality, I feel like what I'm seeing it instead is not that that the individual is screwed, is that they are always in self-protection mode to be very explicit about what has happened, what you're going to lose, blah, 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 all the way down, because they have to cover all their bases. That's probably why it costs more, and that's why, like the taxes here are higher, like all of this costs money that people pay into. But again, all my anxiety, I recognize, was based upon my US experience. It had nothing, and just dealing with anything I deal with in the US. It's always about the road is full of cracks, and are you going to fall through one? Whereas here, the road is really paved, really smooth, and, maybe cobblestone streets, And I may not know because I don't know how to walk on cobblestone streets, meaning I don't know French. But in every case, I find out I am supported. No one was looking to kick me off down the mountain, whatever. And it doesn't even, and even when I looked at the documents that they had sent me, even though it was 3 months in or so, they're like, if you have any difficulties paying, please contact us because we know difficult things can arise. And it was never like threatening, or if you, actually, this is another good point. If you don't have money, which a lot of French people have they make less money than we are used to in the US, there's no shame in that. I'm seeing that in the documents, and in the treatment. People here are not looked at by, does this person have money? Does that person not have money? That's not even in there's no awareness of that. Where in the US, I feel like that permeates everything. You can tell, depending on your zip code and where you live and, what kind of cars you're driving, all this kind of stuff. And even down to the products that you're buying, who's got money and who's not. And I think the treatment is very different based upon where you fall. Whereas here, it's like everybody's in the same big boat. It's a big ship.